Thank you, Madam Speaker, for the opportunity to add my voice to this motion. Maybe as a way of striking while it's still hot, while the iron is still hot, I want to begin, first of all, by congratulating the Patriotic Front and political parties that were participating in the campaigns in Kafue, from nomination day through to yesterday, and I remotely participated in that process. We experienced a very peaceful period of campaigns. And in the same vein, I would want to condemn in the strongest term what is being reported happening in Kafue right now. But it's also important, I think many times as politicians we're quick to condemn the police when it is convenient for us. I think it's important with the reports we're hearing to commend that the police have moved in quickly, and so far it looks like situations are contained. Those who are perpetuating violence or intend to perpetuate violence in Kafue should stop forthwith. And I think it is important that that is put on record. Madam Speaker, His Excellency the President of the Republic of Zambia, Mr. Edgar Chagwa, mandated by the Zambian people through what the people expressed as their aspiration, their intent, mandated the President to come once every year to Parliament to be able to speak on our behalf as a people, giving a report on the progress as a people we are making in our application of the principles and values that we have set for ourselves. When the President comes to the House to give that report as head of state, he doesn't come to give a PF statement. He comes to speak on behalf of all of us Zambians, to give a report which one has to encourage us to see that we're making certain strides, but also to unveil the fact that there are still areas of concern. And it is expected that even as we debate this motion, of course, we take a moment of introspection to look at where we are, what contribution each one of us and our different people groupings in our country are contributing to the applications of the principles of values that we have set for ourselves. Madam Speaker, the importance of defining, or at least having in our constitution clauses that speak to the fact that a country has this set of principles and values cannot be overemphasized. The foundation of any country that has seen prosperity and progress has always been defining who they are and what they believe in. Today, the Dubai that is being celebrated is anchored, their progress and prosperity is anchored on clearly defined principles and values. If you read the book written by Sheikh Mike II, entitled The Vision, it speaks to the fact that in casting the vision for that country, leaders at that particular point and as a people collectively defined for themselves principles and values and began to whip themselves towards the applications of those values. It did not happen overnight. It took time for those things to be actualized. Now we're talking about maybe 40 years, 50 years after. The dividends of that effort is now being seen. I had a personal experience, Madam Speaker, of having visited that country just to speak to the fact that if you are consistently whipping yourselves towards a particular set of principles or values, the results will ultimately show. I happen to have forgotten my valuables in a hotel room, my iPad and a few other valuables, and only realized when I was on airborne. I even had surrendered that obviously I'll never recover those things. Madam Speaker, 3-4 days after my return, I was shocked to be called that those valuables were actually sent without missing anything. But I had a different experience here in Zambia. I was flying from Ndola into Lusaka. I put my valuables, and one of them was a laptop, in my check-in bag at a point when I had passed through the security point. When I got to Lusaka, alas, my laptop was not there. It just speaks to the fact that I think as a country collectively, the values and principles and morals, the ethics have gone down. And I think it would be erroneous for us to start pointing fingers, and play the blame game. Let's accept that the mere fact that the Patriotic Front government, the president, were eager to have the current constitution enacted, which provided for these provisions, is progress in itself, to be able to whip ourselves as a country in a direction where we have defined values and principles. The president identified a number of issues that he spoke about. I'll pick a few, Madam Speaker, as a way of just undertaking some kind of introspection. The president talked about patriotism and nationalism. Madam Speaker, this country was actually born out of patriotism and nationalism, or what you'd call a sense of national unity. Before we attained independence in 1964, Madam Speaker, there was what sometimes we don't refer to, a coalition government in 1962. And this coalition government, Madam Speaker, came about because there was an election where the Federal Party got 17 votes, the UNIP Party got 14 votes, and the ANC got 7 votes. And none of them could make the required number for them to form government. And therefore, they began to speak to one another to try and add the numbers to form government. A patriot, a nationalist, by the name of Hari Mwangankumbula, at that time, had the option, having gotten the least number of seats, to go and cut a deal, a political deal with the Federal Party, and be able to form government, and he was even promised to become Prime Minister. But he subordinated his political ambition in the spirit of patriotism and nationalism. He chose to go and hold hands with those who were previously his subordinates. Dr. Kaunda at some point was the Secretary General, younger than him. All those issues did not matter to him because he could not stomach the idea of going to cut a deal with colonialists, cut a deal with those that were oppressing our people. I shudder to think that such consideration would be made today, especially that we have in today's generation of politicians, those who are willing to go and sell their souls and the souls of this country at the altar of few coins before imperialist capital somewhere. Hence, we are having politicians that whenever they have some concerns, they don't find local platforms satisfactory for them to air their concerns. They end up going to some imperialist platform sponsored by imperialists to begin to demonize their country. That is unpatriotic. And that should not be tolerated. And it's a shame, Madam Speaker, that, for example, we have moments when people go to South Africa to go and try and talk against the country and the challenges that we are faced with. People going to South Africa to go and talk about, at that time, I remember a few months ago, years ago, people going to talk about road shedding. In a country which is also experiencing road shedding, at least for Zambia, we have been able to solve that problem. It has been minimized. Today, South Africa, Madam Speaker, they are saying, officially, government saying that we have reached phase 4 of the challenge of road shedding. But we have not seen any of the opposition political parties there coming to Zambia, either on Prime TV or QTV or any of these television, not even ZMBC, to speak about those issues that they are experiencing in South Africa. They are talking among themselves in the spirit of patriotism and nationalism. It doesn't mean that even if your concerns are legit or legitimate, it doesn't mean that you have to go out there and wash dirty linen in public. It's unpatriotic. Even here, Madam Speaker, here in Parliament, the little time that I've been here, I have discovered that we speak to each other. There are issues that we address here, which may not be of public consumption. I have learned that actually we can switch off the television, switch off the radio, and get people off the gallery so that we can talk to each other. Because there are issues that must be a preserve of a particular family. There must be issues that are a preserve of the family called Zambia. That if anybody hears about them, it's a rumor. Not for a citizen to be traveling out there to go and not only, undertake propaganda, and sometimes, to my shock, we even have people inviting opposition political parties and leaders from other countries to come and join forces to demonize the country. That should not be tolerated. It's unpatriotic. It's unpatriotic, Madam Speaker. I am yet to see the likes of Hari Mwangankumbula, who, when the country was threatened with division on tribal lines, he didn't go on an ante and start trying to lament self-segregation. And I must say, Madam Speaker, that today, this afternoon, I came to the House depressed because over lunch, I met one I considered an honorable member, and we were discussing about national unity and trying to discuss issues to do with the tribalism. And this member says, me, I'll never be patriotic to this country because I feel segregated against. I said, you, of all people, surely, even if truly there was segregation, it is men and women who are ready to rise above that, to be able to do the correct thing, so that those who are perpetuating that evil are able to be curtailed. Not for you to become a catalyst for propaganda in the area of segregation in terms of ethnic consideration or tribalism. I thought I could just be able to highlight those, especially politicians who themselves have come on the platform or come into politics on the platform of tribalism, and it is in black and white. I am compelled to say, such politicians, we need to ask them to apologize for wanting to present themselves that the only qualification they have to engage into politics is nothing else but tribe. If anybody invited me to join their political party and become a leader because of my tribe, I'll consider that as an insult. It means they have seen no value whatsoever, no intellectual capacity or any other capacity. The only thing I'm bringing to the table is the fact that I belong to that particular tribe. It's an insult. And it should be condemned. It should be condemned. And I am glad that there are whispers around. And maybe to challenge whether
Ignore the whispers and debate, Honorable Nakacinda. You are being derailed. Don't be derailed. Focus.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. It's
Ignore them.
I'm ignoring them, Madam Speaker, because the UPND is that political party, Madam Speaker, that has that kind of leader. And it brings me quickly to the issue of dialogue, Madam Speaker. It brings me to the issue of dialogue. The president was one of the first leaders of a political party, obviously seconded by MMD, to speak about the need for dialogue in this country. And the subject of dialogue, unfortunately, Madam Speaker, began to take different turns. But the good thing is that today I want to congratulate all political parties in this country. We were able to whip ourselves and say, colleagues, I think the country has been tensed up for a long time now from 2016. Last year, we went and gathered in Siavonga, and all of us asked each other questions. Do we have the full mandate of our respective political party when it comes to the issue of national dialogue? All of us committed ourselves to say yes. We deliberated for 3 days and agreed on the issues we wanted discussed. Madam Speaker, we were shocked, some of us, that even after committing ourselves to an accord in Siavonga, some political parties came here, if not one political party came to Lusaka and began to somersault and start proposing an agenda outside what we discussed in Siavonga. And in the end, it brought a stalemate in terms of us making progress in the dialogue process. And they began to demand for another version of a process. A few weeks ago, Madam Speaker, we decided to meet again in Lusaka. And we said, maybe let the presidents meet, since in Siavonga it was the Secretary Generals, and presidents met and discussed again, and even agreed. And we even agreed on what we needed to present to those who had chosen to chair the process. When the time came, Madam Speaker, for us to face with the chair, only to find that one political party has changed its position. We brought ourselves back to say, what has happened to the UPND? Have you changed your mind? They didn't even have the decency, even at the level of president, to say...
Order, Honourable Member. That expression cannot be allowed. Decency, level of president. You are already debating in a very nationalistic manner. Continue with your debate that way.
Madam Speaker, due to time, it was shocking to find somebody change on their own words. Luckily, that meeting was recorded. We said, can we replay the recording so that we see whether we have negated on what we said? That political leader said, we can't go that route. They were not even willing to account for their own words. It's a shame. And then today, government has taken the lead to accommodate the views of what we discussed in Siavonga and give it a legal framework. We are hearing already whispers and debates out there and mobilizing to try and shoot down such an initiative. That should not be allowed. In the spirit of patriotism and nationalism, there are certain issues that we should never discuss on partisan line. The spirit of nationalism and patriotism must kick in whenever we're discussing issues to do with the Constitution. The bill that was proposed by government, I must commend the government for taking such an initiative. And every patriotic Zambian and the nationalists who support that bill, who support the national dialogue, based on a properly orchestrated legal framework that will make sure that no one is left behind. With those few words, Madam Speaker, I thank you.